Start. This is Coffee with the Councilors. Good morning. We'll go around the room and ask people sitting in the audience what they'd like to talk about, and then anyone online who wants to talk about something, and go around and let each of you ask a question, say your piece, whatever. Hey, Mr. Tulip.
I'm not sure anything really, just kind of for the information. The main thing that's in my head is this latest ordinance of the planning commission. I still haven't figured out what that's about. I don't know if that's beyond the scope of this discussion or not.
Oh, no.
I guess
Any of us have figured it out.
I guess the other one would be the, tree ordinance. Did that ever get passed by the city council?
No, it's
Okay.
coming back.
All right,
But
that would be it.
Okay, we'll talk
Those
about
two.
that, okay. Mr. Barabodi.
I'd like to talk about the last planning commission meeting and also about public meeting law violations.
Okay. Okay. And
I'd also like to talk about the planning commission meeting and what's gonna happen between then and this next meeting.
Yeah, Bobby, I'd just like to socialize an idea for the elementary school in Nacoos.
oh, so, okay. Your last name, let's say it again.
HDYNN.
You have a presentation, you just want to talk about it.
No, I just want to talk about it. I brought a handout that I can give to you so you can get some idea of what I'm talking about, but I just want to talk today.
All right. And online,
We have Anita Duber.
oh, Anita?
Good morning. I maybe just wanted to talk a little about the purple loose strife.
The what?
Purple loose strife.
Oh, good. Okay.
And then you got Nancy McCarthy.
Nancy?
Hi, I'm just here to listen. I'm the editor of the infamous Community Bulletin, and just wanted to remind everyone that it did come out today, or came out this week. So I'm just here to listen.
Jenny is also.
Jenny?
Well, I see Bob there, but I wanted to talk about the lifeguard, whatever those things are called, about whether the city can contribute to those, or, we desperately need new ones. And I'm just wondering what's happening with that.
Lifeguard towers. Okay, good. All right. Anybody else? I've got everybody? Okay, let's start with Mr. Tulip. So you wanted to know if the tree ordinance was coming back, or?
Yeah, what is the latest status? I've kind of been out of the loop. I went through the planning commission and it came up briefly at a city council meeting I was in, and started making changes, and one of the members on planning commission at the time started making changes to something he should already approve, so I kind of said, like, what's going on?
Well, first, the planning commission passed.
Right.
The proposed tree ordinance after so many meetings,
Right.
because there were so many people who wanted changes, and we incorporated most of those changes, the volunteer group, and brought it back again, and it passed. Through, brought it back through planning, asked them to bring it. And then, it went to the council, and the council had some issues with certain things, particularly with, I think, how it intersected with housing. And so then it went back to the drawing board. It's been, different people have come in and asked questions or given their input. And it's, finally, I think that it's closing up to be something that can be presented to the council. But it won't go back to planning commission, because they passed what was there, and then the council asked for changes. So it doesn't go back to planning, it goes to the council, directly to the council.
Okay.
So I have no idea what will become of it, it's hard to say at this point.
So I had some issues with it at the beginning, but I think it got to a tolerable standards. I didn't see there was really that much to be rehashed after it came out of the planning commission, but apparently there is.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of questions. The Department of Forestry, Oregon Department of Forestry, ODF, has an community outreach expert on it, a man named Mr. Giersbach. He's written a couple books on trees and he's really knowledgeable. So we've contacted him over and over. I'm sure he's so sick of hearing, hi, this is Lisa Kirk from Cannon Beach again. I mean, I reached out to him so many times, asked him what best practices were for various things, but what makes a significant tree on the coast, because he's familiar with coastal trees. You know, that's, you know, he's given us tons of feedback. We still haven't sifted through all of it, because some of it's brand new as of a couple weeks ago. So we're going to sit through it.
Can I ask a follow-up question about that? Who's handling those changes? You said there's changes being made to the tree code.
It's a volunteer, you know, it was the whole thing started because a volunteer group of people were concerned about all the trees we were losing in Cannon Beach. And so it was just sort of, this volunteer group got together. We're not a committee. We have zero power. We don't have any, neither the planning commission nor the council said, we want you to do the tree ordinance. Not any of them said that. They said, if you want to go and meet your group of people, go ahead. It's your business.
So is this the same tree group that I attended one?
Yes,
weekend?
it is. Yeah. the
And
same
you don't
one.
think that those are supposed to be public meetings? They're making recommendations to
No.
the city council?
No, I don't, because it's not a committee. It's a powerless group of concerned
How can you
citizens.
say they're powerless if they're making recommendations?
Anybody
Policy, right?
can- anyone
They're
can make a
making,
rec- you
but
can
you're
make a
a
recommendation.
group.
You
You're a
make
group that's
recommendations
meeting.
all the time. You
You're-
make recommendations, don't you, Mr. Barrowody?
I do, and I do it in public,
Yeah,
I do it
and
in-
we make our recommendations in public too.
but you don't have your deliberations.
You
in
don't
public.
deliberate in public. You deliberate with you and Randy Neal talk, or you and someone else talks to each other. I'm not privy to what you're saying.
I'm not reporting to the city planning department either. You are reporting,
We're not
your,
reporting.
your stuff went to Steve. Your stuff went to
And we
Steve.
asked him if he would present it to
Okay,
the
so it
planning
was,
commission.
those should be public meetings. That's my point, is you are making policy decisions for the city as a private
We're not
individual.
making policy decisions for the city at all. We are a volunteer group. We're not even a
It doesn't
committee.
make any difference if you're
It
volunteer.
does.
You're
I'm sorry.
recognized, you're
Councilor
recognized by the
Bertolozzi,
city.
I know you're an attorney, but I'm asking you now, I'm not gonna argue with you on this. We asked Ashley specifically, she said, if you're a committee and you're appointed and sanctioned by the council, yes, then you have to have open meetings and publicly recorded. If you are a group of volunteer citizens who are willing to put in, I might add, well over 100 hours of our own personal time, on our personal time, meeting at each other's homes, serving coffee and refreshments on our own dime, then it is not a public meeting requirement. It is a group of concerned citizens, and if we present something to the city and the city, to Steve and ask him if he would put it through the planning commission, if he'd ask the planning commission if he liked it, or if it's okay, or if they would consider adopting it, but we have zero power. And we
Well,
have
I'd like-
zero,
I guess my comment, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know the law. I can read the law, but I don't necessarily understand all of it. I think that we need to get an opinion from Ashley, that these meetings that you're having, that are then making recommendations to whether it's the planning commission or the city council, that those are legal to have without having public input.
okay, we've done that, Mr. Barrow.
No, you don't have anything in writing unless
We
I.
don't have it in writing, and we're doing it again. We're gonna
Yes.
ask again.
Good, decided, as you know, we decided last night that we were gonna ask for another opinion.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's
Same-
there's two things.
Same
There's-
person.
There's asking for the opinion, and then there's some discussion about what's the most appropriate way to handle it, because just because it's legal doesn't mean that's necessarily the best way
Right,
to
and
handle it.
openness is part of the state law, openness. We side on the part of openness. In the city, you, Mrs. Kerr, have done just the opposite. You keep all these meetings to yourself and control the narrative. And I don't mean to be mean, but that is exactly what's going on. You're hiding these meetings. You told me last night that all the planning commission, the housing focus group, oh, I was welcome to attend any of those. How would I know when you had those
The
meetings?
housing focus group is a little bit different, because that was put together through the city.
But you said I was invited to those. How was I invited?
Well, I guess if you've been at the meeting when everyone volunteered to be on it, whoever wanted to
I
volunteer.
listened to every one of your joint meetings,
It's
every one of
there,
them.
it's right there. In fact, I didn't even know we were gonna have a task force. And as soon as it was mentioned, I went, oh, I wanna be on it. I actually said, I want to be on it, those words. And several other people said they wanted to be on it too. But the tree group, I gotta tell you, it's so, offensive to me personally that this group of citizens has spent so many hours and so much time and consulted experts and did all of this on our own dime and our own time. And all we get back from you is like, how else if you were a concerned citizen who wanted to change the tree ordinance, what would you do?
I came and first of all, I testified at the planning commission. And then because I raised enough points, Mike Bates called me and invited to a meeting, which I came to one, was never invited to another one.
I was told you were invited to another. one.
No,
Didn't
I
you?
was not. Never invited to another meeting
Okay,
because you didn't like what I had to say. And also, I completely rewrote part of because it was so poorly written. What was given to the city council was horrible. What passed out of planning was horrible. I completely rewrote it, sent it to Rel Sinclair. To my knowledge, you guys have had no more meetings, but if you
We had
had,
meetings,
but
and
if you had had a meeting,
we took some of your suggestions to heart.
well,
and
good,
tried to
and I
rewrite
appreciate
it.
that. I really appreciate that, but I really think that those meetings need to be public, we need to be announced.
What are you
You
gonna
have
have
a lot.
people come to someone's house? All these people are gonna come to somebody's.
Have it
home?
here, have it here, have it at there's a meeting room over at the trailer, have it there. You can have it anywhere you wanna have it. They're public meetings.
They're
We
resolved-
discussed,
Okay, they're not gonna resolve this because
we're not. You're
what
right.
you can do in a committee and the amount of work you can accomplish with a small group of people and the amount of work you can accomplish, as you have seen with the school is a great example, or now the housing with a huge group of people, if everyone comes in, the amount you can accomplish is very different. And so,
If you read that,
if you don't believe in working groups or focus groups trying to work on something, that's your business and.
I believe in it. If what you're doing is gathering facts, and not making policy recommendations, no problem. I have no problem with you doing that. But when you start to make policy recommendations and you dictate a policy, then you've crossed, you did, you've crossed the
What are you
line.
talking about? I dictate, just because you disagree with me, Mr.
No, no, no,
Carlone,
no.
that's what it is. If I was
No.
if I agreed with you on this, you'd have a whole different. Yes, you would.
Absolutely.
I'm sure, just because I don't wanna discuss it anymore. I really think it's a waste of time.
Because you
We're
didn't
not
just
going
gather
to
facts.
I have never dictated policy. I can't. This guy wouldn't let me.
Okay, no.
Obviously, there will be,
So,
all these
Can
are,
I ask you a specific question about the planning housing group? Did you ever dictate a policy to Marcia? Did you tell her what the FAR should be? Or how to
I
change
gave
the?
my opinion, and then Jay Orloff said, no, I think this makes more sense, and I went along with what he said.
So you did make recommendations.
I did, I said, I would like to see this, somebody else said, I would like
That
to see
crosses
this.
the line from information gathering to policy decisions. You have to understand that line.
well, let's let the attorney decide.
Yeah, exactly. You need to disclose that to the attorney. You didn't just gather facts.
She picked she picked a number, an FAR number, which was really small, a lot smaller than what you
I
saw at the
understand that.
meeting. And some of us said, that's not gonna fly, that's too small. And I think we've got to up it a little bit. And so different people came up with, said, well, what about this? Or what about that? Or what about this? And then a consensus was reached. The people finally said, okay, well, yeah, Marcy, we think you should up it. And she did. And that's,
That's policy. That's not information gathering. I'm sorry. So let's drop that subject for right now. I want to talk about what happened at the planning commission is basically, my interpretation is the housing focus group discussed with Marcy. Marcy made this, complete red line document. She was thrown under the bus. Read it to the audience, but don't explain any of it. Just read it to the audience. And then you had all these mad people who had written letters and were in attendance and nobody explained any of the changes. That is the worst sales job I've ever seen in my life. It was horrible. I felt sorry for her and for the whole planning commission because nobody had any idea what was going on. You had a bunch of residents who were really upset. They didn't know why the farm was changing. They didn't know what the public benefit building were. They didn't know any of the conditions that were going. They were totally uninformed. There was no communication of what was coming and why. None.
I have to say that I agree with you that it should have, that if I would have been in her position, I would have gone through very explicitly each change and why that change was being recommended. She wrote a policy to begin with. We didn't write the policy.
I
We
understand.
did, she wrote it. And then we weighed in on it and said, we thought that was too big or too small, or that's not really a great idea. Or what about this? Or what about that? People just threw out ideas. She took the ideas that we threw out, decided how it was gonna go. Unfortunately, I'm not happy with everything in it either. I think none of us are.
Well, could
But-
you change the agenda for the next meeting and have you suggest that maybe somebody explain all these changes and how they're gonna benefit me as a property owner? How they're gonna benefit Bruce as a city manager, you as a resident and a homeowner? I mean, there's all this stuff that's in there. It's pretty complicated.
It is
And it's
complicated.
major changes and people need to understand. I think that there's just this huge confusion. I talked to Nancy McCarthy about it.
I would like, it's not gonna be next meeting.
Can I interject? What was the purpose? What brought this Marcia, I guess, into doing this?
Marcy is an
Where-
expert. She's done
Yeah,
many
where
other.
were we supposed to go with this?
The
What
whole
was
thing
the-
is to provide housing. It's not to provide personal benefit for you as a property owner. That's not the intent. The intent is to provide housing.
Is
for
it for a certain-
It's part of a major code rewrite. The whole thing is,
Yeah.
it started with a major code rewrite, first just to reorganize the code. But then there were several areas that we wanted to address where we felt the code needed to be changed.
So you're,
And
so,
so
so.
we already passed the wetlands
Right.
ordinance. That was a similar thing with a group, a volunteer group, making recommendations. And then a tree group, and the housing group. Those are three of the, top priorities that we identified.
So
where
what
the
you're
code needed.
really looking at is workforce housing, basically a lower rentage.
That was the whole point of it. It had nothing to do with just changing things for the sake of changing them or because you want smaller houses or any of that stuff. It was all to try and encourage and incentivize workforce housing. Affordable housing is a different thing, and that's a different group. Would work on that. That is subsidized housing. This wasn't subsidized housing. This was just lower rent or lower cost
A
housing.
lot of what we can do is encourage multifamily, ADUs, multifamily.
Duplexes.
Yeah, I guess just from what I'm hearing, I don't think you get there unless the city council, the government gets involved with subsidized type of housing in this.
Well, that's a different thing. That's like
And
upgrade
that's
is
a different thing,
subsidized.
but they're kind of all grouped together. You can divide it, affordable, whatever affordable is, and everybody's mind is gonna be different, plus what workforce is, but.
Yeah, I
The one person that I would say that.
Well, Marcy did that, or not Marcy, the other woman who came, what's her name, from the housing task force,
Alyssa.
Yes, Alyssa. And she laid out at one of the meetings what the financial, what percentage of your gross income should be going to housing for you to
Yeah.
fall into the affordable housing category, the workforce housing category, and they're always confused.
But some of it has to do with, policy and some of it has to do with code changes. So this is working specifically on the code changes, but we're also working on a policy that's a lease to locals program that we're participating in with the county. That's going to provide some incentive for empty second homes, to come onto the rental market, and they will get some incentives, some cash incentives, to do that. So there are multiple lanes at work.
No, I understand that, but I would think that the one gentleman that talked about the sort of trust fund for housing and wrote that letter, made that presentation. I think that's kind of a starting point, whether it's the answer or not, but I think that's really a starting.
That
point.
was actually brought up
That
a
whole.
long time ago by Chet Moritz. He did an incredible amount of work on trying to get, there was some county land that was available for free. And he wanted to see that county land, he wanted to put affordable housing on the county land and have a nonprofit run it, you know, oversee it and get the land for free, but you have a nonprofit overseeing it. And then the county wouldn't give him the land for various reasons. And that may change someday in the future. I don't think so.
Yeah,
But they decided not to. So that kind of fell apart. He came and talked to Marcy many times. He's pretty much an expert on it. And has always, you know, touted that. That is a different thing. That's subsidized. That is not, you have to, your income has to be less than what typical middle income
and the
is.
whole land trust concept depends on building land inventory. And
Right.
unfortunately, there's not much. In this case, it happened to be county land that,
Yeah,
could have been available and ended up
Which is too
not
bad.
working out. But,
yeah.
I mean, that's one of the challenges we have. There's not buildable land inventory to create a project
He
like
has
that.
formed,
But
he has,
again, that's one of the lanes we're looking at.
Chet already has a nonprofit to try and facilitate that. He just hasn't had an opportunity. He really wanted to do something over in RV Park, but that kind of fell on, received chilly reception, so. And I agree with you, Mr. Bertolotti. I think that the meeting, I sat here and listened to it, and I was disappointed that there wasn't more explanation, because just throwing out numbers without giving an explanation as to why isn't effective. And I agree with you on that totally.
But some of the code changes are allowing for, units above, in a dormer of
Uh-huh.
a
Yeah.
two-story
Just
building, so
like Whitebird.
it's waiving some of the parking requirements that are in the current code. It's limiting the size of your house if you're building a single-family residence, but giving more, FAR back if you agree to build a duplex or multifamily. So those are the kinds of things
It
where
could have been
through
explained.
code,
It
we're
really-
trying to, encourage that kind of housing.
Well, that's a good explanation. I appreciate the input. The problem is you get this very obscure letter that people commented on that makes absolutely no sense. And you go trying, what's going on and why, and
I
then
understand.
when you start doing the FAR restrictions, that's people's property rights, and we're gonna come in here looking for a fight, so.
Well, any regulation.
The FAR is just kind of crossing the line, I think, but anyway, you know, that's.
Any regulation, any city in this country has FAR
Yeah,
regulations,
so when you.
you know.
And you do
So-
use your code to try to encourage, things going in the direction that you want to see.
Mr. Yu?
So I can understand, you know, that the meeting was poorly executed. But a lot of that work should have been done long before that meeting. I mean, we did have a community bulletin coming out in the beginning of July, which is basically the same time the letters are going out. We did have a Cannon Beach Gazette going out at the beginning of July. At the same time the letters were going out. Neither one had any mention of these kinds of changes, no description of the complexity of what's going on. We now get sort of a abbreviated thing in the community bulletin. It's still not very descriptive. We missed yet another cycle of the Cannon Beach Gazette to try to educate homeowners and residents of what's going on. And it just appears that there's no effort trying to be told what the heck's going on with all this stuff.
I think we could do better at a summary of what the code changes are
But the
doing.
council has.
And there's going to be lots of public meetings going forward.
My question coming in today is, what's happening from the last time to this time? You know, what's gonna happen in the planning commission this time? Is there gonna be any documentation that goes out to that mailing list of, you know, here's frequently asked questions? Is this stuff legal? Is it not legal? There were lots of questions about that. And I don't think there's anybody, you know, trying to answer any of those kinds of questions.
Well, the legality questions have pretty much been addressed for what is in Marcy's proposal. If she doesn't,
All the deed restrictions are solid.
the deed restrictions aren't even really solidified within themselves yet of how that would work. There's still a lot of.
We've got a code in front of us. You're gonna vote on that.
It's a proposed code and there's changes that can be made to it based on community foot. That's why you have a community meeting, to see how it's received and
So
what.
how is that question going to be answered? Is it legal or not? Is it binding? Is it not binding?
Well, her proposal was legal.
It
She,
is.
yeah, I mean,
She didn't answer, Mr. Wade's question that he was asking him.
if it was legal,
Yes.
well, she thought it was. I mean, that was her understanding. She's, she does this for a living. She's an expert. She's not just gonna throw illegal ideas out. So she's done it in other communities. I mean, I don't, but she also just said she would ask. She would make sure that it was before she went forward with it.
So, and then,
I agree with you. It wasn't.
then back to the public meeting. So the housing one is clearly, the city paid for this consultant. The combined, city council, DRB, whatever, set up this committee to come back and give them a recommendation. That is clearly not a fact finding thing. That
Did the
is-
committee was the committee there on the planning commission giving a recommendation?
I don't know who was giving the recommendation.
No, it was Marcy. She was the one who was
Why
hired,
was the applicant for that?
the city.
Okay, why was
Because
the
we wanted
city
to
sitting
change-
there,
we
why
wanted-
was the city sitting there explaining what's going on?
Because they hired Marcy to do that. Marcy is a consultant. She's done so many of these programs in many communities. She's from HerbWorks. You should just go online and look at the work that HerbWorks has done around the state. That might help make you feel more confident. I don't know. But she is the person that was hired. She was leading this whole thing. She was the one who came up with most of the ideas. After she interviewed a bunch of people around the community from various, some of them on commissions and councils, some of them just not on either. And she had a whole survey that she did saying what people wanted. And if you haven't seen it, you should go back and look at it. It's really interesting. And what people wanted, and people wanted more affordable, not affordable, I should use that word, that's loaded. More lower income housing, middle housing and workforce housing. That's what came back in the survey. So that was what she set out to do.
So out of these changes, I'm usually the guy asking the financial questions, not these other kind of questions. But how many homes has been, have you estimated that we would get either from lease to locals or these code changes, additional ADUs, additional duplexes? What kind of numbers are we talking about?
It depends on who you speak to. She hasn't given us any numbers. If you're gonna ask me, I have my own opinion on that, and at least to locals, I would say maybe 10 houses max if we're lucky. I doubt even that, but that's just my opinion. I'd love to be proven wrong. I would love it. And as far as through this program, I don't know, because I don't know financially.
Well, we all know an ADU costs up, they basically like $200,000 to build.
You're asking, no one's gonna do this because they, are altruistic. A builder's only gonna build something that's gonna make them money. For 99% of the time, so I don't know how this would work financially.
So basically, it sounds like in Cannon Beach, the minimum, cost per square foot for any kind of building.
I know.
Is $300 or $400 a square.
I
foot.
know,
So that doesn't correspond back to anything that's rented,
you have a point,
Sorry, it doesn't correspond to,
something that's rented.
yeah,
well, and not cash flowable, but,
So
Certainly.
our script should have been trying to figure out how many of these things can we build? How many do we think people will sign up for, and are they affordable?
first we have.
property value.
Are they rentable?
First, we have to find out if people are even amenable to the idea. And that was what that meeting was for. And unfortunately, there's still not an answer because if you're correct that it wasn't, there was no big no explanation. I think people are just confused. All they see is, oh, my house is gonna have to be smaller, which it isn't, but you know, that's how they interpret it. Well, if I wanted to add on another 1,000 square feet, I wouldn't be able to do it, and that is true. So.
But you could
know,
add it on for an additional unit.
But not
So
for a
it
single
might,
family.
might be that, a single family home could be 1,750 feet. But you could build a duplex and have 2,500 square feet. And certainly that's going to increase your property value. So I don't think it's all about necessarily cash flowing, though I do think there need to be incentives for people to.
Okay, could I add something? I went back through and reread or re-listened to the entire meeting. I read all the written comments that came in and I listened to all the public comment. I saw one written comment that was favorable. Everybody else was against it. I heard two verbal comments. One from Bob Lundy that was thinking that maybe he would have more full-time residents in the city if this passed. Another one from somebody who had a very, was basically didn't support it, but thought there was a couple of good parts. So the overwhelming testimony in that public meeting was against the
And
proposal.
you know why that is? Because people always come in and testify if they are concerned about their property rights or their property. If they think it's good, they don't say a word. This has happened
Well,
over and over.
you can say that.
Everybody, this has happened in every single thing the city
You can
has
say that,
passed.
but the city did this 20 years ago. I lived here 20 years ago. I bought an old house here that had about a 2,500 square
I
feet.
know that they tried to lower the FAR years ago. I mean, that.
But the city council did lower it. And then there were a couple of citizens who threatened lawsuits, a taking lawsuit. And they had some powerful attorney. Obviously, the city got scared and reversed it back to
Well, that's too
0.6.
bad because they wouldn't have won if they'd gone.
Well,
forward. It's
you know,
not
I'm not a
taking.
lawyer again. I don't know.
Well,
but
I
just
found
find-
it's not a taking. So,
But, you know, I think there's different interpretations of that. But you have people, a lot of people who testify and say, well, I bought an old house in Cannon Beach. I'm planning on retiring here. I need to rebuild my 100-year-old house. And you're gonna prevent me from doing that with this new farm. So that needs to be addressed.
how would it prevent someone from rebuilding their old house?
Well, if they've got a house that's 2,800 square feet now, an old house that's fallen down and needs to be rebuilt. Under your rules, they can only build 2,300 feet, including the garage, right?
It depends on what it ends up being. I don't know. That was one of the proposals.
Well, that's the proposal. So they're scared. So those kind of things need to be addressed.
Yeah.
That's
but-
what I'm
But
saying. They,
people are always going to put their own, well-being before that of the community.
They
That's how
should.
it happens.
they should.
Well, that's your philosophy.
It is,
I
definitely.
think that putting
The city's not gonna take
the
care, the city's not gonna take care of me. I get to take care of the city.
city takes pretty good care of it.
There's a lot of talking to go on both of these topics, and I've met with the tree/housing group too and expressed my concerns. I have concerns about the deed restrictions. And that I don't necessarily think that's going to incentivize people. So, I mean, there's a lot of talking to go. I don't know where the rest of council is on it, but I have expressed my concerns about tree ordinance and how it works with housing, and
And that's why.
we're gonna see where it goes. We're gonna have lots of talking.
That's why the tree ordinance would listen to that and said, if you're building duplexes or multifamily housing, you get forgiven from the tree ordinance. So, I mean, I can't say that again to you.
I can share just a quick perspective on the communication of this. I didn't go to I didn't listen yet to the planning commission meeting. But I've been on the fire board now for 3 years. Housing, workforce housing is a major issue for us. Our firefighters have to live, are required to live within a certain geographic area. And, you know, we subsidize housing for our officers. These are not poor workers, right? These are middle class citizens who in normal circumstances would live in a nice middle class neighborhood. and they cannot afford to live anywhere near Cannon Beach. They cannot afford to live within our prescribed service area. And so we spent a tremendous amount of time looking for rentable housing within Cannon Beach and the surrounding area. It's very challenging for us to find leases. If we can find them, it's never on the open market. It's always by word of mouth. If we find them, that they last for a year, and then those houses get sold. And so this is an ongoing problem for the fire department. And I feel like I'm pretty well tied in to what's going on. I've met with Chet multiple times. I have my own property. It's just south and east of Cannon Beach. It's on 101, and I've got an open application to build workforce housing on that property. And despite all this, when I got that message, that notice from the city, I had no idea what it was about. It doesn't say anything about incenting workforce housing. It just read as a bunch of code. And so I just think the communication here was, in terms of tying what's being proposed to the actual problem and whether these solutions will work,
That wasn't there.
was pretty bad.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
So, but
So here we are trying to backload it and explain why this whole thing, we shouldn't have to, that should have been apparent to everybody.
Yeah, and
I
I share
agree
with
with
you
you.
concern that I have significant questions about whether this will work, because I'm trying to do it myself.
I do too.
And I understand the financing of it. I've talked to the city about, what it would mean to, become incorporated in, inside your road boundary and the cost of that. It's a tough problem, and I'm not sure, I don't want to weigh in on the solution without really understanding the depth of the problem, but it's a tough problem.
it's that middle housing that
Yeah, that's what that's the whole point of this.
we're really looking
Yeah.
at, and that's why
And
incentivizing multifamily. And personally, I think deed restrictions
And I think if you
are
don't
not
have,
going to encourage it.
if you don't have a deed restriction, then it'll revert and be high cost rental again. That's what it'll.
Well, but
And what's the point of that?
there's
So
not
I
gonna
don't trust it's a good idea.
Our housing trust for affordable housing. We're not,
There are all kinds of.
But at least the locals program, something like that, that actually incentivizes people to turn things into rentals, I think. Is really an incentive, where the other is kind of just a stick.
So let's try to do some of these things now and go.
yeah.
So I think we better move on to,
So you had something you wanted to present.
I do. This may take a minute, so is everybody else presented?
I think.
No, there's-
I think we're at an impasse.
there's two other questions.
Well,
Out
there's
here.
Anita, if you want to go last, is that?
I'll go last, and then Jane wants to talk about lifeguard towers. I'd
Well,
love to
Anita.
chime in on that as well.
Anita? We're running out of time. Anita?
Yes, good morning. My goodness, I've kind of lost my train of thought for my question. Appreciate all the commentary coming from the audience and councils trying to explain. Quickly, listening to council meeting last night and the in-depth discussion regarding the purple loosestrife, it came across to me is that, there's imminent danger of purple loosestrife taking over Little Pompey. And I thought maybe the Parks Committee could help out, while other options are being discussed and looked at. The spraying really, of course, I think alarms a lot of people as a choice. So I can't speak for the entire committee, but I see that the Public Works Director is on. So if we want to approach Parks to see if we can help out with, sort of taming loosestrife, but being a gardener, and Ginny, I think Lisa, weeds are just part, it's through attrition. You just have to pull, and any invasive species, you just kind of have to stay on top of it. But anyway, that's pretty much all I'm going to add right now.
So you're suggesting local volunteer hand eradication efforts.
In the
Yeah.
meantime, we'll get the answer to the question. She's not saying necessary for good, but just while we're trying to get more information.
Uh,
Or ongoing, I mean, I think the Parks Committee could do a lot. We've talked about, weeding around the tennis courts. Karen made some great suggestions for some other areas in town. The Cannon Beach Conference Center has some great volunteers that Parks Committee has been able to pull in and help in some areas. So just gonna throw that out there for consideration and maybe some direction for Parks Committee.
Well, Anita, there's also a group called the Weekend Warriors that goes out every month and pulls weeds and clears out invasive species in various areas of the city. That's already in action, but I don't know what's involved in pulling purple loosestrife and if they would be capable of doing that.
or it can be spread if you don't do it right, so,
Right.
there are concerns, but, I think it's a good idea.
Well,
I'm just, as a matter of, what we can do now, I guess, while other options are being considered. But-
May I comment?
yeah, of course.
We have many volunteer work groups, and with the proper training and instruction from Aaron, although after last night he resigned as our invasive species specialist. So we'll have to find ourselves another contact. But with the training to the volunteer group, they could go out and help contribute to the hand eradication of it. But they need to do it the right way. Otherwise, it just proliferates this situation like Aaron talked about last night.
Thank you. Okay, that's something maybe at the next Parks meeting that could be brought up by someone. It would be great.
Well, I have a question. So I know that topic came up in the earlier last week. Eric brought it up about, bird alliance and whatever. And I went back and looked at, it's like, how did that topic reappear just this very next week?
I think there are two different discussions.
Uh-huh.
There were concerns about the mowing around the.
Oh, that's a
ponds with the
whole
birds.
different thing.
And this discussion came up about that we need to address some of the invasives in the wetlands.
That
So
was
they were,
it was a concern brought up by Public Works because last night, because they were very concerned about the proliferation of the invasive species. That had nothing to do with Eric, when Eric brought up the topic about mowing around the treatment plant. That was for separate, that there was a concern for fledgling birds. This is not about
Well, it's
birds.
also about, what's the right time to prevent the spreading of.
Right, but it was a different thing. That was something,
I thought it was very odd that it shows up at the very last minute, basically on Friday before Tuesday.
What happened was our expert went out and was going to be dealing with the purple loosestrife. And was shocked at how much of it there was. And that and what his message was, is that if you want to take care of this, we need to go ahead and get more aggressive. It was completely independent of the situation. That's how it came up, and it came up there.
thanks. And while you're speaking, could you address Jenny's question about the lifeguard tower?
That's strictly a council decision, is whether or not they're fund.
Oh,
It's not
okay.
much of that.
but they have a fundraising effort going on right now for, they're looking for grants or.
Yeah,
I can speak to the fundraising effort. So we have applied for a grant for two towers. So the plan is that there will be towers, both north and south of the current haystack tower. So one in the Toll area, one up in front of the hotels, where you have the preponderance of people. The towers will be smaller, so not quite as tall, a little bit more modern, and their intent is, in addition to citing for places where people can sort of come for help, got a lost child, like stuff like that. The grant requirement is that we we try to do some fundraising. And so the GoFundMe was initiated not by the fire district, but by the association. So it's completely separate from the district. There hasn't been much response to date. I mean, a few $100s. So I think that the fundraising effort is mostly a method that will enable us to make the grant application.
And what's the goal? What do 2 showers cost?
I think on the order of 150,000, something like that. It's not a lot.
150 for the 2.
Yeah, I believe so. It's not a ton of money, given the critical nature of sort of the requirement. These towers are sort of an integral part of the strategy for monitoring the beach, and in conjunction with the vehicles that we've got out there today. So we had a discussion about this at our last board meeting, whether we should, try to pull this into our next budget cycle or push it out years, so it fits more cleanly into our overall capital budget. My opinion is that, we've talked about replacing that tower for at least 5 years now. It's in complete disrepair. And for that amount of money, the city and the fire department just need to get together and, make a decision.
So do you end up with 3 towers or 2?
2 towers.
2 towers.
Yeah, the one that we've got now is gonna fall apart. I mean,
And
it's all together about 8 at this
The
point.
new towers are portable, they'll be removed.
They would be, yes, and they would, I believe the cities agree that they can stay in the same place that there's the one stored today during the winter.
So the fundraising effort right now is a GoFundMe.
I think it's GoFundMe, yeah.
Are there grant options out
There is grant option, but getting grants now is sort of problematic.
Yeah,
Even if there's money, there's no way to actually get them awarded, so I don't know what's gonna happen with that.
no way to get them.
Well, it's hard to get them awarded. The infrastructure for actually issuing them is sort of been.
So you think most likely, maybe the fire department will be approaching the city to try and come up with.
I think so, I think we're gonna be presenting, the September 2nd meeting, doing our annual PFT report, and maybe we'll bring a proposal or something at that point.
Okay.
I think that would be good timing to get that on the table.
And I really want to hear your other presentation. So is there anybody else who hasn't spoken online who'd like to say something? Yeah, Jeannie.
Well, I just wanted to put in my 2 cents worth that I think it'd be really valuable effort of the city to put in some money. And I know it's been in discussion before is whether it's appropriate use of TLT dollars, since the rescues aren't us. We're not, going swimming out there. So hopefully, that would be something that we could use TLT dollars for the city to put in, a good amount, because we do need those lifeguard towers. Look at the ones that Seaside has, they're really nice. I'd be curious how much those cost. So that's what I have to say about it.
Yeah, it doesn't qualify by the letter of the law for TOT dollars.
I think it does, but.
It doesn't qualify by the
Well,
letter of the law.
oh, by the letter
You
of the
can,
law.
you can spend it on anything
You can
and risk a
interpret that.
challenge.
Okay, all right. That's not our.
It'd be
I-
nice, if we could get visitors to contribute to it then, in some way, but I don't know how that would ever happen.
I mean, that they're being used, I mean, the lifeguard, very few of the rescues, from my understanding, are
Or what?
local people, once in a while,
But that's not,
huh?
that's not what the law states, but.
Yeah, I don't know, we don't track, we track, our, most of our EMT calls, whether they're local or tourist, but not our rescues, so I don't have good data for you.
Okay,
I would assume that most of our rescues are tourists. So.
okay, well, now,
Yeah, I think the lighting.
yeah,
So, I would like to socialize an idea for, the elementary school in the Coos Park. When Carolyn and I moved here, I guess it's been 5 years now, one of the first things we did is we went to an open house at the elementary school, and Bruce showed us around. And so that was our introduction to Cannon Beach. And he's very excited about all the possibilities, and at that point, you know, data was being collected on what the school could be used for. And, you know, we just moved from Lake Oswego. In 2006, Lake Oswego bought a building for $20 million to build a community center. Never really got their act together. There was a lot of contention in the community about whether the money was well spent, what it should be used for. And in 2016, they sold the building to Yakima for $20 million. They spent over 10 years, they spent close to $2 million a year in interest and maintenance. The building was never used. And finally, this year, Lake Oswego is opening a really nice recreation center, which was what the community wanted and was funded 20 years ago. So, and I did a lot of work on that, you know, on that center, you know, making proposals and whatnot. So when we moved here, I wasn't anxious to get involved. But I know there was a ton of really good work that was done by a lot of people coming up with a concept, and whether you loved it or you didn't love it, somebody must have liked it, because there was a lot of work and it was a great effort. And to see that just shattered and then, you know, no follow-up to me is heartbreaking, because I know what it looks like. It's really easy to kill projects like this and not get them going. So, you know, I've had, you know, I've talked to a number of folks in town, and actually shared an email concept with Tim Rainey, who I think may have forwarded it to council, because it's sort of, it's come back to me. So I know that at least a few people have seen it. But the idea is to build something using a structure called a sprung structure. So sprung structures are tension membrane structures built on an aluminum, non-corrosive aluminum structure, freestanding, pre-engineered. So they sort of look like Indian longhouses in a way. The company that builds them is a private company. It's over 130 years old. They've installed 12,000 some odd structures around the world. They are, you know, they do have you know, people think, oh, it's tension membrane, it's a temporary building. These are engineered to be permanent buildings. They're in Antarctica, they're in Saudi Arabia, they're designed for the most severe weather conditions. And, you know, I started looking at these probably 15 years ago, because I was looking for low cost enclosures for competitive swimming pools, which are, you know, extremely difficult from an environmental point of view, because they're corrosive, forming and whatnot. So I've looked at a bunch of them, and I'm sort of a fan. But I've also tried to promote them, you know, to the situations, you know, similar to this one. And I know they're challenging. Some people think they look great. Some people, you know, aren't as excited about them. There's always questions about whether they meet code and whatnot. But say what you want, they are, they're used for a ton of different things. They're used for sports facilities. They're used for people who build hospitals, they build churches. Dartmouth just installed a sprung structure at their community center. Blue Origin in Seattle, one of their main office buildings, 250,000 square feet, is based on a sprung structure. They're used for homeless shelters. They're used for a ton of things. And they are extremely resilient buildings, you know, and there's a lot of design options. So you can build them with vestibules and gables and walkways. They can be designed to look really, really nice. So I just brought a picture for you. Just give you sort of an idea of what these structures.
I saw your pictures online.
Yeah.
In the letter, and I just thought, hey, look.
Is that the same as the Denver airport?
It's not. I mean, it's the same concept, but the I don't think that one is the sprung structure. Okay.
So obviously they have, if they're used for, you know, shelters and things like that, you can put plumbing in them, or you can do.
But at least for anything, I mean, if you go on their website, it's sprung.com. They're building hospitals inside these things, schools, lots of churches. And so when I, you know, when I was
Already had a performing arts center.
yeah,
Really, as a performing arts center?
yeah, I mean,
Wow.
they're so flexible. They can be used for a ton of things.
So this involves demolition of the gymnasium?
So I'll get to the my concept in a minute, but I've been a fan of these for a while. And so, if you look on the other side, I sort of superimposed what, a concept on the current site. So, that structure that I've shown there is 290 feet by, or 270 feet by 90 feet. So it would cover, sort of where the parking area is today behind the school, and partially, cover the gym and where the food bank is. And then, I've shown parking, which would be right in front along the street. So it would require demolition of the current buildings. But what's nice about these structures is they're freestanding, so they don't require any excavation. They just are attached pilings, and so, we're not talking about trying to renovate an existing building. We're talking about demolishing and then installing. So I call this concept that I've shared here is sort of a rec center concept. So I've got some pickleball courts and a warm water pool in there, as well as the maintaining the food bank. It's an industrial kitchen in its current location. So you can see how all those things sort of fit in there. So the way I've got that just shown you come into a lobby, there'd be sort of a locker room behind it, some recreational pool and some recreational things to the right, some pickleball courts and an open area to the left, and then the food bank. But this could be configured as a community center. We could go back to the original concept that we had as a more of a cultural center. Had a nice entry area lobby out front. It could open up potentially into the park with, they've got like garage doors fully open, so that the whole back could sort of open up into a park if we wanted to do something like that. I don't want to prescribe what the use would be, because, talk to every resident, they've got their own idea. I would use it to build a 15-year saltwater pool for lifeguard training and whatnot, but I don't think that's probably what the.
Randy would play pickleball.
I mean, lots of tennis facilities use these kinds of things.
Yeah.
They have the garage doors that they open up in the summer. And every professional sports teams are using these kinds of things for their practice.
So I called from, and to give me an idea of what this particular, the way I configured this facility would cost. So $60 to $65 a square foot for the material. So the build cost for the material, about 1.5 million. They said it would take 55 days to construct it with a team of 10 people. So I don't know, it's another couple $100,000. Figure a couple $100,000, several $100,000 for the concrete, something for the demolition. I mean, we're talking about a very reasonably priced
That's
structure.
pocket change to Bruce.
They could get built pretty.
What?
That's pocket change to Bruce. I mean,
Yeah.
So, and when you use that figure, that's just for the envelope,
That's for the envelope.
yeah.
Yeah, that 1.5 would be the envelope, so it's the aluminum and the tension membrane. And then everything else, whatever you put inside it, of course, the demolition, the concrete and the pilings would all be incremental, so.
I see Saskatchewan has horrible weather, so there's, I was worried at first when I saw it on what you sent, what was sent to the
Yeah, I mean,
council.
these are designed for wind, snow, seismic. They've got, I think they're permitted in Dade County for hurricanes.
Yeah,
So they're built for to sort of withstand the worst conditions. They're, from a maintenance point of view, every 20 years you can replace parts of the membrane if you want. I visited one of the pictures on here, the top or the bottom left picture is the Kearns pool it's a 50-meter pool in Kearns, Utah, so it's just outside of Salt Lake City. And I visited that structure about 10 years after it was built, still in pristine condition. You go into most pools and there's corrosion, and the roof is leaking. There's really no roof on this per se, and so it doesn't suffer the problems that a lot of brick and mortar buildings face.
What about heating? What kind of requirements for heat?
You put standard ductwork in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is,
Probably whatever you want.
Yeah.
Want done, you get it done.
Yeah. I mean, you can build out the inside of this however you want.
I think it's a really good starting point and good idea. Two things that have struck me, a lot of the discussions around Nacusa, what we do is the emotional attachment some people have to that gym. I personally have never been in there, so I don't know what to say about it. And the other thing is, incorporating the tribal into it, I'm sure that'd be probably easy to do, but I think it's a really good starting place. Something certainly should be discussed, and, whenever this kicks back off again for replanning, it'd be really nice, you mentioned the open house. I guess I missed that, it'd be nice to have an open house, I've never been in that gym, people start talking about a mezzanine and preserving this or that. And I have no idea what they're talking about, so if this kicks off, it'd be nice to start with an open house.
Anyway, Sprung does a lot of work with tribes, because the structure sort of looks like a longhouse. And so they actually have a whole group that works specifically with tribes. And if you go on the website, you'll see several structures that they built for tribes.
It's really interesting. I would love to see
I just agree.
what would it take to have a presentation done? For
I
communities
just
that,
contact them and do the presentation.
for the community, for everyone to come to and listen.
Yeah.
And I know, and I question how much emotional support there is for the old structure. I talk to people who live there their whole life, their kids went to school there.
Who think
They
it's,
say, oh,
should come down.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think there's a mixed bag. I think there are some people who are emotionally attached.
I think they're getting less emotionally attached as the discussion furthers and as the place deteriorates. I think the
And
emotional attachment is deteriorating as
as
well.
people realize how much money it would
Yeah.
cost to
Bring it
do
to
anything
public.
with them, so
Yeah.
I think that's.
I'm
I
not
think we're
worried
beyond
about that.
saving the buildings.
I don't think that that's.
I would agree, I don't.
Yeah, and I would agree that it would be a problem a year ago, but people have gone from that.
So, for people online who are interested, just go to sprung.com. They've got a ton of pictures, there's a great video out there that shows the construction process.
Yeah,
And, I'm glad to help coordinate a meeting where we bring in some folks who would actually present, what they do and what this kind of.
that would be.
What's the name of it?
Yeah.
It's Sprung Structures.
It's strong on your spell?
SPRUNG.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Sprung.
I think we need discussion on
About,
what we want to have there.
I did get the email from Tim, by the way.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's all I got.
We need to have discussion.
Can I ask a question? Could you spell that out for us? Because it's very difficult sometimes to hear around here.
I'm sorry. Yes, it's SPRUNG.
the past tense is spring.
Okay, all right, great, thank you,
Structures.
great, thank you.
Got it.
Does the
Thanks a
community
lot,
want a
thank you.
pool,
You're
or
welcome.
we need more?
Pardon?
Yeah, well,
Does the
yeah,
community want a pool? Do we need 3 more pickleball courts?
none of those decisions have been made by anybody yet. We're just talking about the concept of a sprung structure, that's it.
What goes inside there?
Yeah, that's a whole other
Whole other-
discussion.
Like, we wanna go back to, okay, we need a facility that needs to have full-time management. Is it an event center? A lot of those things. If people wanted those things, we would have passed it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think though that if people envision these types of structures as being like temporary, hangars or, temporary gyms or things like that. The idea here is that this is a permanent structure that can be used for a lot of things, and I think it's got an attractive price tag. You can move, quite often they're built because people want to need them quickly, so they need them, and they're pre-engineered, so you bypass a lot of the things that would typically be involved in a construction project. No excavation required. It's nicely on the site, so there's a lot of compelling things, and I think when people see all of the uses of these buildings, it will get them thinking about, what would be an appropriate use for Cannon Beach.
So this structure is 90 by 100 by 260.
This here is to scale, 270 by 90. So a pickle, this is a 20-yard pool, and that's a pickleball court, which is 60 by 30 feet.
Yeah, to me, that's just, it's huge on the site, and there's a lot of support for restoring the park.
Yeah, that's probably a mid to large size frame structure, what you see there. Be a lot smaller. Anyway, just to sort of initiate some discussion, and if there's interest in, presentation, I'd be glad to help get that coordinated.
That's 24,300 square feet, right? Yeah, so it's big, but that's another discussion, how big you'd want, just the concept of this front
Right.
structure is what I'd like to see presented, just so that we can talk about it. It might be a way to initiate a conversation about what the future of that site is, whether we end up doing a front structure or doing nothing or whatever, just as a good starting point. Because it's a lot less expensive than what was voted down.
Right.
Yeah. So, thank you, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
You've done a lot of
Appreciate
work
the
on it.
opportunity to present it.
Anybody else have anything to add or subtract? Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone. We're a little bit over time, and talk to you soon.